Real quick, before we get into it, I'm Leanne. I grew up in a fishing village in Alaska. In my younger years, there were no roads, no electricity, no plumbing. I got a biology degree and spent years on a research vessel helping study and regulate commercial fisheries for the state of Alaska. And then I walked away from it all to build a life on my own terms. I'm not a doctor, and I'm a researcher by training and a woman who got a diagnosis that forced me to start asking better questions. So when someone comes to me about peptide safety, I take that seriously because I've read the studies and I want to make sure you have the real information too. So someone named Chris came into my comments not long ago and basically said this: the peptides are dangerous because they aren't FDA approved, that if they actually work, pharma would sell them, and that there are no safety standards, and that people like me are just back alley grifters selling sketchy products. Okay, Chris, let's talk about it. Because I'm not going to get emotional, I'm going to get factual. First, the FDA approval process. Do you know what it costs to get a drug approved by the FDA? Anybody? $2.6 billion with a B, billion dollars on average, and 10 to 15 years of clinical trials. Now ask yourself, who has that kind of money? Big pharmaceutical companies. And that's it. That's the list. So here's the problem with peptides. A lot of them are naturally occurring compounds. That means they can't be patented. And if you can't patent something, you can't own it. And if you can't own it, you can't make billions off of it. So nobody is lining up to spend $2.6 billion to prove something that they can't profit from. That's a huge loss. That's not a safety problem. That is an economic problem. There is a difference. Second, the research. The research on peptide goes back to the 1960s. There is a significant body of work out of Eastern Europe and Russia that the US has simply never prioritized. Not because the science wasn't there, because the funding wasn't there. That's a political and economic reality, not a gap in the science. Third, sourcing and safety standards. Chris said there are no safety standards, and that's just not accurate. The peptides I talk about are sold by licensed U.S. compounding pharmacies and research suppliers. They operate legally within FDA jurisdiction. They are labeled for research use. And reputable suppliers, the ones we're talking about, provide something called a certificate of analysis, a COA, and that's a third-party lab test that verifies the purity and composition of what's in the product. These are not back alley products. The FDA knows they exist. The FDA has not banned them. That alone tells you something. So look, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your body. That's not my job, and I wouldn't want it to be. What I'm here to do is make sure you have real information, not fear, not hype, just the actual facts so you can make your own decision. Because you are smart enough to do that. The system isn't always built for us. That doesn't mean we stop asking questions. It means we ask better ones. If this was helpful, share it with someone who needs it. And if you want to go deeper, I have a full peptide research guide linked below. Everything I've learned laid out so you don't have to start from scratch. I'm Leanne, and I'll see you on the next one.